Hello everyone, back again today for another video on what life is like in a psychiatric hospital. My name is Aika. I'm a trainee psychological wellbeing practitioner that's going to be starting my doctorate of clinical psychology at Oxford this year. Before I begin, I just want to say every single psychiatric hospital in the UK is probably slightly different to each other. I can only speak from my own experience. I worked as an assistant psychologist in an inpatient women's hospital for 1 year, and I worked across a PQ, so a psychiatric intensive care unit, and I also worked in a low secure forensic personality disorder ward. In terms of the clinical presentation, so the diagnoses of the people that I worked with, a lot of them presented with psychosis, a lot of them with borderline personality disorder. We see quite a few patients with bipolar, some eating disorder as well, so it's quite a huge mix. The reason why there's a huge mix is because a psychiatric intensive care unit is basically like a hub, not a hub, but a congregation of everyone or anyone who's in a mental health crisis, who find themselves in a space where they couldn't keep themselves safe or can't keep other people around them safe. The turnover is extremely quick. One day you will say hi to someone and the next day they'll be gone. So the kind of vibe of PQ is very, very intense, very fast paced. Compared to the low secure forensic ward, it's relatively a little bit more calm. There's people stay for around 6 to 8 months, or maybe even longer. It's not that there are less issues in the forensic ward, the issues are just more entrenched. So it might be bullying or grudges that the ladies have against each other or against certain staff, maybe a long history of generating mistrust by absconding or taking in drugs. So you get to know the ladies a lot more in a kind of long stay ward than you do in a PQ ward. So that was kind of the vibe. I was split 2 days on the PQ and 3 days on the forensic ward. I worked under a forensic psychologist. I went to all the ward rounds, which is basically meetings with the multidisciplinary team. So I did all of those meetings every single week on the PQ, and then also whenever I needed to on the forensic ward. I ran groups both in the PQ and in the forensic wards. I also did a lot of one-to-ones. My low secure hospital was a double locked hospital, so you have two front doors that are locked. You basically need a badge to go in, and then for each of the wards inside they also have air-locked double locked door. The first area to think about when you go to a psychiatric hospital is whether you can get in at all. Members of public cannot just walk in and out of a psychiatric hospital. Secondly, all the staff must have breakaway training. So what breakaway training is basically teaching us skills to break away from possibility of kind of danger. It's about perhaps teaching which leg to stand on, what angle we should be facing against patients, how to roll out of a situation, or which area to nudge on someone's body to get out of a situation and run away. So everyone has to get that done. It's usually a 1-day course before they even are allowed to step into the ward. The second thing is rules around how you dress and the things that we have to do beforehand. So number one, no contraband items. So we're not allowed to obviously bring lighters or knives, all kind of contraband items. You can Google what contraband items mean. So we have to wear a badge which serves as our key and also identification as well. So this badge is not like a normal badge. It actually has like 2 snappy bits. So the reason why it has 2 snappy bits is because if someone becomes agitated and they yank on your badge or lanyard, then you won't be like strangled or anything. So another essential thing which I always forget to bring to hospital is a belt. In the morning we get our keys and then we lock it into our belt, and then it stays with us the whole time. So this belt is really interesting for people who haven't worked in inpatient hospitals before. The belt has obviously loads of keys, but there's also a round thing that's a pit alarm. When you yank this alarm, the whole hospital sounds like a massive alarm that goes like ding. My alarm impersonation was top notch. Across the hospitals, there's loads of little monitors that show where the alarm is coming from. If a patient comes up to you and they become really aggressive, you can pull your alarm and people will come towards you and help de-escalate the situation. Other things that we're not allowed to wear is dangly earrings. I would definitely not be wearing these if I was working in an inpatient ward. No hoops as well. I also keep my hair tied up, so I tie it up like in a bun, just so if someone gets really pissed off, they won't like have a chance to yank your hair or anything like that. Third thing is obviously no heels. Again, this can be a risk if someone takes off your shoe and uses it as a weapon if you're wearing stilettos, or if you're trying to run away through breakaway, you can't run away and you twist your ankle, then you're How the hospital works, usually people are sectioned under the Mental Health Act, which means that it's involuntary admission, so they didn't choose to come in. How do the wards actually look like? A lot of people have a lot of misconceptions of how psychiatric wards look like in 2020, but they're nothing like how asylums used to look like in the 1960s or the 1910s. It's not like that. I wouldn't say it's like a hotel, it's definitely not. It feels a little bit impersonal because a lot of the designs of the furniture is very specific to psychiatric wards. So for example, the chairs are very heavy and they're very hard to topple over, just in case people use it to, smash windows. All the windows are double glazed, but they're unbreakable glass. All the TVs and the notice boards, everything is protected with like keys. Everything is locked in place. Even the tables are really hard to flip over. It's very modern, lots of CCTV everywhere, except for in people's actual rooms. There's a nursing station. So this is where all the nurses and all the support workers go. It's like a little hub that has a window and everything is in there. It's quite chaotic in these nursing rooms because they're usually way too small for the capacity of the people that actually work there. There's like computers, loads of papers, teas, sugar, a fridge for little snacks. The nursing station also generates the most drama. Patients bang on the door, try to get their leave or like need something, then like they're constantly at that station. In the nursing station, there's like a huge board, the essential information of each patient. So their room number, their section number, what kind of leave they're on and what kind of observation levels they're on. There are different leaves levels and there's also different observation levels. So leave levels are, some people are allowed unescorted leave, so they can leave the hospital without anyone following them, whereas other people are on escorted leave, meaning there must be a support worker or a nurse available to watch on them. And these leaves are usually because they might have a history of drug use or absconding, so disappearing from the hospital and not coming back, or coming back later than they agreed to. Observation levels, there's one-to-ones, which is basically a support worker or someone else has to be within a meter from the person at all times, so they're constantly on observations. There's also 2-to-1, which is usually for those who are aggressive or self-harm a lot, and then there's also 15-minute or intermittent observations. So in a ward, there's the nursing station, religious kind of prayer room, activities room, living room with a TV, with sofas, the kind of medication booth. How is life usually like for the women who stay in the ward? It is quite, not gonna lie, boring place to be because there's very few things you can be doing. Activities are somewhat repetitive, but they try to change it up. A lot of women get really agitated on both wards that I've worked on. The biggest drama that always happens, is an everyday occurrence, is the desire to live like daily leaves. There's always a shortage of support workers, there's always some shortage of nurses if they go sick or something like that, so there's never enough people to get the ladies out on their leaves to get their cigarettes in, because they're not allowed to smoke in the hospital because it's a smoke-free hospital. So it generates a lot of tension, always about cigarettes. It's always about leaving for cigarettes. There's very few that don't smoke cigarettes, but even then they would really want to have their leave. Other altercations is when leave gets removed from someone because they've done something. So for example, if they've been found to smuggle drugs in or to test positive for drug use, or they recently punched someone, then they get their leave removed and they get really angry about that, which is like totally fair enough. People aren't usually friends of each other. There are some friendships that happen, but again, it really depends on the ward. So in the personality disorder ward, there is lots of cliques happening. So it's very interesting in terms of like the dynamics of the ward and how that changes the dynamics of the people in the ward. Looking back on my experience, you get really desensitized to violence and risk and incidents of self-harm or suicidal attempts or any kind of verbal aggression. The first few weeks was quite like, whoa, like this is insane, this is crazy. But after a while, it happens, but it's just like a normal part of the day. You kind of just glaze over it, and it's not necessarily a good thing. I'm just saying that that was my experience. I just kind of like, oh, like the alarm's on again. Actually, I don't even clock it most of the time. Like it just like goes, and it's really loud. It's like it's so loud that you can hear it through your earphones. The stories that I have gotten from working in a psychiatric hospital, the ladies I've met, the relationships I've built, they are formative for me. That's where I learned the most about the human condition and human society and the unfairness of human society, really. How difficult it is for someone who is not normally functioning in society to be accepted by society. So a lot of difficulties come with discharge. A lot of people actually sabotage their own discharge because they are so scared of reintegrating into society. Actually, it's a safe haven to be in hospital, which says a lot really about society, how unforgiving society can be. Looking back, it was definitely really intense compared to my current job. If you used to live in a bubble like I did, it gets broken, and you see the world for what it is, which isn't the prettiest place. Working in a psychiatric hospital has really taught me how prejudiced people are about psychiatric hospitals. The amount of times I've said, yeah, I work in a psychiatric hospital, and people would be like, ooh, like that must be so intense, and like try to like disappear into the background, or be like, oh, like that's not for me. But actually, at the end of the day, they're normal people. Like I just wanna, that's the biggest standout message for this video, is that they're more normal than me in many, many ways. They're more sociable than me, more funny than me, more ambitious than me. They are just normal people who can't control their emotions sometimes. And that leads to them being more aggressive, or that leads them to harm themselves. They have their own talents, they have their own families, they have all their relationships that they want to go back to. A lot of people have this misconception that people in psychiatric hospitals, they're different, they're like other. Not us, they're not part of society, they're like, ooh, like hush hush. Like that's just so not true. They're just totally normal people who have had really difficult lives. If you read their histories, right, sorry, I'm like ranting right now, and put yourself in those shoes and live their whole life, you would probably end up in the same place, if not worse. Like I think a lot of times they're actually so resilient given how much trauma they've had throughout their lives. My experience of working in a psychiatric hospital was largely positive, even though I started working there with no experience of working in a psychiatric hospital. It's definitely been a huge learning curve, more on the personal side around what are my assumptions, what are my biases, how did I react in this situation, why does this situation generate so much emotion in me, or what does this difficult situation, what has it meant about me that made me so upset? You know, all these kind of very reflective personal gains. I've gained a lot from the hospital, more than they've gained from me, because I have no clue what I'm doing. No, I'm joking. Even though it was a really tough time, I've had like at least 2 or 3 breakdowns in the hospital, crying, and so has my best friend, who was also an assistant psychologist, and my other really good friend that was my an assistant psychologist as well. We've all broken down at some point, so it's a very emotionally intense place. That never really fazed me. I think like that really doesn't bother me, because life is a roller coaster of emotions. It's something that we should embrace, and it definitely hasn't deterred me from working in a psychiatric hospital again. And in fact, I feel like the relationships are richer because you're seeing the same clients every time, compared to currently I work in primary care service, where you only see that person for 4 to 6 weeks for only 30 minutes and then you're gone. You never see them again. In psychiatric hospital, you really get to build relationships and really get to know the whole person rather than just their issues. The life stories, what kind of music they play, what foods they don't like, their relationship history, what kind of drugs they usually tend towards, or their personality, things that they say when they're angry, all these kind of like little things get brought up because they literally live there. So the dynamics are really, really different. My final day was really funny actually. There was 2 stories actually. The first time was my best friend and other AP's final day. Literally everything that could have gone wrong in a group gone wrong on her last day, which is so funny. Not funny because it's unfortunate, but like literally a million things gone wrong. Like one person spat at someone else, and then another person punched them back, and then someone like stole something, and just like a whole mess. And then someone started crying, and then another person felt like they wanted to self-harm and decided to leave the group. A million things happened for her last day. For my last day, it was like, remember this so well. It was like 10 a.m. in the morning. I'm still really tired because I have to wake up at like 6 or something to get to the hospital. And I'm in a ward round, so like a meeting that happens every week. And I was just sitting there with my laptop and my tea. The patient got really angry that her leave got taken away. They started flipping the table. So they pushed the table upwards and everything started sliding downwards. And I was like, so I just carried everything. Like in my head, I was like, it's literally 10 a.m. on my last day. Can this not happen right now? She then crawled underneath the table and then tried to push the table from above, because these tables are really hard to push up, but she was really strong, so she like pushed it up. A nurse that was a big guy, he like came to like try to escort her out, but she didn't want to, so she was kicking him, and he kicked him. She kicked him in his balls and then punched him, and just a million things happened. And the pit alarm got set off. She was about to charge towards a consultant, because the consultant has to make the really difficult decisions. It was just so intense, and that was my final day at the hospital, which is actually hilarious. I really like that ending because it just spells out and reminds me of how much I can handle now in psychology. Because a lot of people working in psychology and mental health, they've never actually worked in a psychiatric hospital. I would definitely recommend it if you want to work in mental health. Having that experience of how psychiatric hospital kind of works, you probably more able to be empathetic or understanding of what kind of things they might have been through whilst they were sectioned. So that's the end of the video about how life is kind of like in a psychiatric hospital in England. If you enjoyed these videos, please give this video a thumbs up. I don't know why people need thumbs up for videos, but it's free. And subscribe to my channel and follow me on Instagram for more kind of updates that are more detailed. So really hope you enjoyed this, and see you in my next video. Bye.